The Dateable podcast is an insider's look into modern dating that the Huffington Post calls one of the top 10 podcasts about love and sex. On each episode, we'll talk to real daters about everything from sex parties to sex droughts, date fails to diaper fetishes, and first moves to first loves. I'm your host, Wayyy Shu, former dating coach turned dating sociologist. You'll also hear from my co-host and producer, Julie Krafchick, as we explore this crazy dateable world. Hello, Dateables. Welcome to another episode of the Dateable podcast where we examine what's happening with modern dating. Who's doing what? Who's doing who? Why are they doing it?
Wow, that sounds so gossipy.
It's a
like
spin-off.
we're now a reality TV series where every week we dissect the story of one person. This could be a reality TV series.
Lisa's hooking up with Greg and you're like, who are they? And I'll just say, my neighbors. You know, it's just like random gossip with people you don't even know.
This is our offshoot. This is our spin-off series.
Our ratings are going to be really high. But I think you all will like this one. This one's about astrology. Our personality test episode did really well. And I think astrology is one of those topics that maybe some people don't want to admit that they read their horoscope and, you know, study this stuff. But I think it's really cool. And there's something to be said about the study of astrology.
I have definitely gotten sucked into astrology TikTok, where it's like people like rich. I remember like someone asking me, what are you seeing on TikTok? Because it's all like based off the algorithm of what you're looking at. And I was so embarrassed to admit that I have a lot of astrology TikTok coming up. But what I'd like to say is this conversation we had with Kristina, I feel like TikTok astrology is just skimming the surface.
Yeah.
It went so much deeper than the Bustle articles or the Thought Catalog articles that I'll look at of what is your sign and who are you compatible with? So I'm glad that we dug deeper because I don't know, I think some of that's like guilty pleasure and it's sometimes comforting to read it, but I always was like, how much weight do I give this? But I feel like she just went layers deep on this episode.
It's astounding to realize that there is a whole other world of astrology that we don't even know about, and you can devote your entire lifetime to learning more and more about it. Mm-hmm. It's the stars, it's the universe, it's how everything is related and connected. So it makes sense. So many layers to astrology.
Well, I think one of the things we talk about that she brought up was the different seasons. So it's obviously your birth chart, how it affects you, but there's also the underlying, you know, as we go into different months of the calendar year, everyone, for instance, is in Libra season right now. And she was saying that it allowed her to have conversations because every season kind of represents different change that's happening in pieces of reflection point. And she was able to like have conversations with her partner and then have reflections on her own based on the season. So we are coming off of Libra season. I didn't even know this until we just looked this up right now. We are coming out of Libra season. And for anyone that's curious, Libra season is teaching you how to find belonging. This is the meaning of what Libra season represents, basically. Okay. So it's Libra season is teaching you how to find belonging with others while keeping the balance between connection and autonomy. Remember, you're not everyone's caretaker. You're responsible only for yourself. Be in a space of compassion with boundaries so you can give from your overflow. So it's basically saying it's not selfish to put yourself first sometimes. And you actually can give more if you honor that yourself and have that self-care.
I feel like some people really need to be hearing this right now. So you're welcome for us bringing it to your attention. You're not other people's caregiver and you are not responsible for other people. You are only responsible for yourself. And I know a lot of people who have the hero complex, who see people as projects when it comes to dating and say they want to fix someone. I've also heard this phrase of, you know, this notion of if only this person could see how great I am for them, then they'll appreciate all I've done for them. If others are not aligned with your values and what you're looking for, they're never going to appreciate what you're giving to them. So I think what you're reading to me is sometimes you got to give a little bit less and use that surplus for yourself as well. So you got to love yourself before you can love others.
I think I struggled with this for a long time because I think I am kind of a natural caretaker. I'm a Cancer, so we talk about that in this episode in great detail. But I think there is this notion that sometimes putting your needs ahead of others is selfish.
Yeah.
Especially like, if someone isn't in the best place, for instance. And it's taken me a long time to realize that it's not selfish, and it actually allows you to like be a better partner and, to maintain your own happiness, which can really only come from within. As you and I just got off of a spoiler alert for next week, a happiness expert. So I think it's this reframing that this is selfish, but it's really a way that you actually can give more to people.
And when you give so much, it inevitably builds up resentment because then you feel like it's unequal. You feel like your partner's constantly taking. Why haven't they stepped up? When you haven't communicated that, you're just the one giving and giving. So maybe it's a good season to pause and reframe and give yourself a little bit more.
You have to do this quickly because we're actually coming out of Libra season. So now that we've given you all the reflections to do this,
6 hours
you have
to do this.
6 hours to go do it. But we are actually headed into Scorpio season. So Scorpio season is, as the zodiac fixed water sign, Scorpio season is serving emotional intensity, raw thrills, and deep transformations.
Whoa.
It's important to embrace the influx of emotional realness, even if it's scary, because if you don't, it's likely to come out via passive aggressiveness, jealousy, power struggles, or obsessions. So it's really all about you like coming to terms with emotions that are happening for you.
Wow. Okay. So you're going to start feeling things.
Yeah.
That's what that means.
I read somewhere too, it's like the season of transformation, of some change, of some shifts, which actually kind of makes sense that, we're going into like closer to the holiday season here too.
Yep. There's going to be a lot of reflection time, changing of the seasons, changing of the year. I think we will be probably diving into ourselves a little deeper in this season. So that you're right. That does make a lot of sense. So for anybody who is dating during cuffing season, because we are also officially in cuffing season, maybe it's also a good time to not fill up your calendar with too many dates. Take the moments to reflect and reconnect with yourself and get in a good place before you get yourself out there again, or not. But I think it makes sense. We're coming off a season where you should place a focus back on yourself, and then going into another season where it's let's use that reflection for good.
I do like this notion of the seasons. Like, I'll admit this isn't something that I've really paid much attention to until now. I think that's why I'm even like struggling to get the words out of what these mean. But I like it because it means that nothing's forever, that everything is just a season, exactly that. And I think sometimes when things aren't going our way, it's easy to feel like it's going to be forever, but to remember that it's just a moment in time. It will pass and things will change. And that doesn't mean that if you are super happy that next season's going to be horrible, but it means that like life is just evolving and consistently different seasons.
Yes. Nothing's permanent. And it's it gives me a little bit of anxiety, but also I'm rest assured that things never stay the way they are forever. So yeah, it's good to know there are so many seasons, and there's a reason for that. There's a season today too, so it's your horoscope season.
You ain't really wanted to go through our horoscopes.
I really want to go through horoscopes. I read them on a daily basis. I will admit I go through LUK because I was told by a friend that they have the most accurate horoscopes. I don't know what that means. But here's yours, Julie. Curb your enabling tendencies today.
Ooh.
A needy loved one may attempt to strong-arm you into prioritizing their needs over your own. Wow, this is all very much related. But unless this is truly a crisis, don't allow your boundaries to be crossed. If you feel like you're constantly bailing someone out, encourage them to foster a sense of independence, point them to resources that will empower them to solve their own problems instead of constantly leaning on you.
Wow, I think that actually is pretty accurate of me.
Is it?
I think the one thing about horoscopes when we go into them, and our guest Kristina was not a fan of horoscopes because she's like,
she used to write them.
Yeah, she's not a fan. But I do think, okay, like, yes, why she wasn't a fan is that they're very general and people will find what works for them in them.
Yeah.
But I do think I am the type of person that wants to fix things a lot of times. And I think I've learned that I need to like relinquish control in relationships and just everything. And I think that's what sometimes we were actually diving into this in our Finding Your Person program. And I think a lot of people struggle with control. And that's one of the reasons that dating can be so hard, because you're almost like need to relinquish that control. And you need to trust that that other person's going to step up and do the things that they say they're going to do. And I think like all of that does tie into what you just said, is that I need to just trust that someone's got it, you know, and I don't need to be the person that's always there and doing all the things. Like, people are capable human beings, right?
Yes. Does that feel freeing to know that?
Yeah, I think so. Because it's like, when you think about it, I think a lot of times we think like we can help and we can do it. And I think, yeah, that's the benefit of relationships and connections. And this is romantic relationships. This is friendship. This is every type of relationship. The benefit is that you do have that person to lean on, right? And to talk to. But I think it really has to come from within anyways. And I always need to remember that like all the people are, even if I wasn't there, they would get through it.
Yeah. I think about the volleyball analogy. You can't get someone to spike the ball, but you can set up the ball for them to spike. And it's the same thing. You can't do everything for other people because they don't think like you, but you can certainly empower them to find their way.
And give them that love and support. And that's the benefit that you're providing. That's the only benefit. You can't go through the motions for someone.
It's so true. It's so true. That's great. Well, that's a pretty good horoscope. Here's mine. Try a little tact, Aquarius.
Dying.
While you may have a salient critique that would help someone out of their current situation, be diplomatic when it comes to your delivery. Overly candid statements could come across as harsh today, as powerful Pluto butts heads with fiery Mars. Don't limit your assessment to the things that aren't working. Incorporate more positive praise into the mix.
So are you going to deliver like a blood statement to me like tomorrow?
No, I know exactly where this applies to. It's work. I'm very direct with my communication, and in Chinese it translates to 直. Like, people would describe you're very 直. It means direct. Even that word just sounds very direct. And I understand that some people don't take that as well, and it could come off not very friendly sometimes when I just want to communicate how something can be better. But there are different ways to deliver that news. Actually, my partner has said the same thing to me. He thinks I'm very direct and I need to soften my approach. So yes, I will. You know what? I'm going to put some cushions around my words today. That's what I'll do.
There we go. Okay, so I think the beauty of horoscopes is, though, you can find within it what applies to your personal situation.
Yep.
And I think, it shouldn't be the ruler of how life is going to go. We talk about this in the episode, but I found these like very, black and white article that was like, these 4 signs are going to end their relationship by October 15th. And I'm like, that feels so aggressive to me. I think what's nice about astrology is this point of reflection.
Yes. And with all of these, like the personality test, the schemas test too, I think it gives you a different perspective about who you are. And maybe we should read them as starting with the word maybe, instead of like, this is definitive. I don't think we should take horoscopes as like a decision maker for us, but maybe it does open up another door for us to think about something a little bit differently.
Right. And I think we've heard this too on especially schemas, because it is, thoughts and beliefs that a lot of people are like, there's something wrong with me because I have them. Yeah. And there isn't anything wrong wrong. There's no like horoscope. There's no schema that's better or worse than another. They're just different. And the idea is that there might be some positives with whatever that is. And there may be some areas, I don't even want to say negatives, but areas to be aware of, to work on. You're not seeing any of those areas to work on. Like, how can you grow as a human? So I don't think people need to take them as like there's something flawed with me because I have them. Everyone has something. There is a sign for everyone. There's not like one month that doesn't have one, right?
No, that's Capricorn. People will agree. Capricorns are going to be alone forever. No, just kidding. I think it's because of the Capricorns I've dated in the past. Like, no, bad sign.
A Capricorn just cried right now.
Please don't cry. Please listen to the rest of this episode. But I do want to get to our question because, again, it is related to this. This person wrote in and said, "Hi, dateable girls."
In that voice. I don't.
This is how
we like to visualize it.
This person dated. So this person says, "I love taking tests. I've done the personality test, the schemas test. I also love reading horoscopes and recently discovered that my partner and I are not compatible by any of these tests. However, I do feel satisfied in this relationship. So should I really take these incompatibilities as red flags, or should I just say, give them the middle finger?" Yeah, well, we also talk about this in this episode. You can't say that these tests are going to help you make decisions. That's not what they're used for. They might shed some light on some of the conflicts you may have experienced. I think it's really harsh to say you're not compatible. How can any test judge if two people are compatible or not? So you can throw the middle finger to that, but take these tests as a way to glean this other perspective of what may be going right in your relationship and what could use a little bit of work.
Yes, I think we need to remember that people are dynamic. We had Frank James was our resident Myers-Briggs expert that we had in, and he actually strongly advised do not put your results in your profile because people will make blanket statements. And I think a quiz is good because it helps you, understand yourself better, but it's also a generalization.
Yeah.
And I think to hold someone accountable of, oh, maybe we're not compatible from a generalization, I just don't know if that's really the thing that should be telling you if they're compatible enough. I think trusting your instinct is probably going to hold a little more weight because this person, they are not whatever they're like 4 letters like ENTP. Like that does not describe them, or that they're a Cancer or whatever it may be. Like I think you need to take them at face value and not make this more in a distinguishing point to break up with someone because of incompatibility.
Can you imagine that breakup conversation? I'm breaking up with you because our signs are not compatible. See ya. Okay, that's going to go over really well. But even in this conversation that you're all about to hear, Julie and I are not compatible with our partners according to the compatibility chart because we have neighboring signs with our partners. And here we are. So
but Kristina also says that she's also not compatible with her partner. And that's on the sun sign. And she goes into that there are so many more ways to measure compatibility beyond just kind of the surface level. That's what's on the Cosmo quizzes.
Yes.
So I think that's another thing to do. Whoever wrote this in, definitely listen to this episode, and maybe it's an opportunity to find compatibility in other dimensions that aren't necessarily the ones that you're looking at.
Yes.
Okay, quick announcements. So at Dateable Podcast, that's the place to follow us. We put up all the good clips of our guests. That's always fun to look at. Follow us on YouTube if you want to see our lovely faces, our recording arrangements, the facial expressions we make when we record. So many good things on YouTube.
It's really thrilling. You're missing out if you haven't seen our facial expressions.
Definitely missing out. So get on that. And then, of course, Love in the Time of Corona by the Dateable Podcast is the Facebook group and the sounding board. I'm going to do a quick PSA on the sounding board because we've had a little confusion here. You do need to go to dateablepodcast.com/sounding board and sign up. It is a paid subscription. Cancel at any time. It's totally totally risk-free, but you do need to pay for that because it is more of our premium community where there are hosted events that happen, virtual events every week. There's the weekly sound-offs that are led by our wonderful host team. And then Yue and I also do office hours to answer any questions. We've had a lot of people trying to join the Facebook group directly without signing up. We'd love to have you. We just need you to sign up. So go to dateablepodcast.com/sounding board. Once you sign up, we'll let you right in. You can join in the fun.
What a lovely PSA. Doesn't that just make you want to sign up, folks?
I just hate sending the message. It's like, hey, we don't have you in our system. So try to get ahead of it.
Also, sharing is caring. We love it when you share our podcast with your friends or colleagues or frenemies that you think should be listening. It's such a great way to start conversations and to even bond over some of the topics. Julie and I spend our time discussing the topics even after we record the episodes because some of them are just so complex that you want to spend more time talking about it all. So share a link, share our Instagram, share whatever you like. I'm sure your friend or frenemy would also appreciate it.
Yeah, and that's another PSA for the sounding board because I feel like one of the things in the sounding board is the weekly podcast discussion group. And I think a lot of people have really enjoyed those because it does let everyone go a little deeper than just listening. You have that sounding board to kind of bounce off ideas and talk more in depth. The revelations you've had from listening, all of that around a guided topic.
For sure.
Cool. So let's get into our quick message from our sponsors.
This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. We at Dateable are huge fans of therapy, and BetterHelp can match you with your own licensed therapist and connect you in a safe and private online environment. Me, for example, I was able to start communicating with my therapist in less than 48 hours. It was so quick. Now, BetterHelp is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches, and it's more affordable than traditional offline counseling. Their licensed professionals specialize in everything from dating trauma, stress, anxiety, trauma with a big T, depression, grief, you name it. They have someone who's an expert in that. We at Dateable wish for all of you to live a happy, healthy life. And that's why as a listener, you'll get 10% off your first month by visiting our sponsor at betterhelp.com/dateable. Join over 1 million people who have taken charge of their mental health. Again, that's BetterHelp, spelled HELP.com/DATEABLE. Support for Dateable is brought to you by Incipio. Incipio offers legendary protection for all of your devices from phones to AirPods to tablets. They obsess over their tech to protect yours. It's like Incipio's line of products was made for me because with their phone cases, my phone is protected from drops as high as 14 feet. The cases are also wireless charging compatible and there's a lifetime warranty. So they've got you covered. I have the Organic Core Clear case, which is made up of 100% compostable materials that reduces landfill waste by naturally re-entering the environment from where it started. All of the packaging is made out of 100% recyclable materials with eco-friendly water-based ink. Now, for Dateable listeners only, we have a special offer. These incredible cases are now available for purchase at incipio.com, and you can use the code DATEABLE for 20% off. That's INCIPIO.com and use the code DATEABLE for 20% off.
Okay, let's hear it from Kristina, all about astrology.
What is this astrology? And this is why we have our guest for this episode. Her name is Kristina because she is our astrology expert. Julie and I have talked about astrology for a long time, but we're obviously not experts.
Nope.
But who is Kristina? She's 35 years old, currently in LA, born and raised there. Although she did a minor stint in San Francisco, she's in a monogamous relationship, an astrologer and writer for astrology.com. Welcome.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be here.
But here's a definition. I thought this was interesting. I want to pull up the Wikipedia definition of it. Astrology is a pseudoscience that claims to divine information about human affairs and terrestrial events by studying the movements and relative positions of celestial objects. It could also be the study of the influence that distant cosmic objects, usually stars and planets, have on human lives. So, Kristina, does that sound pretty in line with what you think astrology is?
Well, I don't know any astrologers that would classify astrology as a science.
Okay.
It's not an exact science. I would classify more as like an art, more of like a language, more in like line with the humanities than this really exact science. It's really such a lived experience. It must be felt and observed through the body. And it sounds so, I don't know, maybe to some people it's like, how are the planets all the way out there going to affect how you are, your personality, or what goes on in your life? It doesn't feel that out there to me to think that like, the sun, how the sun affects us, how Mars or Venus and like all these other planetary bodies affect us. So that's my answer to that.
Yeah, I feel like there's a zillion articles out there of, these two signs are compatible, or what does your astrology mean for your love life? So we're really excited to have you here to talk about astrology and dating and relationships, because I think a lot of people put a lot of weight on it. So we want to debunk if it's true or not and how to use it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like when I was first into astrology, I would always be looking up compatibility with who I had a crush on, or I would like read their horoscope to try to get an idea.
Always. And if they were on the cusp, I would choose the one that was more beneficial for me. Be like, no, they're on the cusp. So they're more Aries today.
Well, I think that's a really good start to this is let's go into, what are the sun signs? Because you're going to tell us too how we go beyond just the sun signs.
Yes.
And what are they and like how do we kind of view this with compatibility?
So I feel like with modern popular astrology, what you see, in magazines, and that's more ubiquitous in our culture, is like the sun signs. And that's basically just sign the sun was in when you were born. And we put a lot of weight into that. And yes, it is a very important aspect of our chart and who we are. But we are actually all the signs and all of the planets. So all of the planets, all of the signs affect our lives and our experiences, our personalities, our upbringing, everything. It influences everything in our lives. So not just the sun. So that's the first thing that I have to say about placing a lot of weight onto, is your sun sign compatible with my sun sign? Well, we're so much more than that, because we have an entire birth chart. And so like the moment we were born, a planet was in a sign. And so these planets are in relationship to one another, including the sun. So it just goes so far beyond like what sign the sun was in when you were born.
And so for anybody who may be a little bit new to astrology, when we were talking about sun signs, we're just talking about the sign, their astrological sign that you would read in a horoscope. Got it.
Yes. Yeah. And that usually relates to, like I said, the sign that the sun was in at the moment of your birth. But also we have moon signs, we have Venus signs, we have Mars signs, we have even like the outer planets, which are indicative of the generation that we're a part of. For example, a lot of people have Pluto in Scorpio. That's because Pluto takes 15 years to transit a sign. And so everyone who's born within that time period, like close to you, around you, is going to have the same Pluto sign. And that just represents the generation. And so if you have Pluto in Scorpio, you are, that's, I guess, another way to think of it is like you're part of the millennial generation. People with Pluto in Sagittarius, they're a part of the Gen Z generation. If we go back to people who were born with Pluto in Leo, they're the boomer generation. So you can see how that kind of influences a part of you, but it's not like it influences you on like a subtle personal level.
Why do you think there's such like an emphasis then on the sun sign if there's all these different ones? Because that's what you see in everywhere, right?
For sure. Yeah. I think it's just because it's easy to understand and easy to get. The sun, it represents our ego, our will, our personality, our spirit. I like to think of our sun sign as like our higher self. who we are on like a spiritual level. But a lot of people don't immediately resonate with their sun sign, and then they are kind of like, okay, well, astrology is fake. So, because I'm not, my brother says this all the time too about like him being a Cancer. He's like, I don't like it. It sucks. Like, I don't like the description for Cancer.
Oh, Julie loves it. Julie's a Cancer.
I was going to ask you though, because I definitely want to go through some of like the key characteristics, because that's like, I swear there's a new thought catalog article every day about your astrology and how that plays into romantic relationships. And I think kind of the critic might say that you're just reading the ones that resonate with you and maybe like not taking the ones that don't. What would you say, and how true do you think these are?
Well, there are, let's say, positive and negative aspects to every sign, because we're so much more than just like the good parts of ourselves, right? We also have these shadows. We're very multi-dimensional humans. And so I feel like picking and choosing the parts that resonate and maybe like dismissing the ones that don't is maybe dismissing an aspect of yourself that you don't really want to see, or you're maybe not ready to see yet. The most helpful thing about astrology for me in my journey has been about using it as a tool for self-discovery. So it's not just like, I'm a Leo, so it's, I'm like the king or the queen. That would be like just focusing on the good stuff. And it's like, okay, well, there's also shadow aspects, and there's negative aspects to look at too. And the more we really accept all these different aspects of ourselves, I feel like the more compassion we have for ourselves, the more love that we have for ourselves, like the deeper we are, like closely, the more intimate we are with ourselves. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I have a technical question for you just very quickly. For people who are on the cusp like me, I'm on the cusp for everything. I'm on the cusp of Capricorn and Aquarius. I'm on the cusp of a Chinese zodiac sign, of the cock, the rooster, and the monkey. So I feel like time zone kind of plays into it, because when I was born, I was born in Beijing, and that we're in a Western time zone, I would have been a day before. How should we read our signs if we're very much on the cusp and different time zones?
Okay, so I'm just gonna maybe unpopular opinion, hot take, but cusps don't, to most professional astrologers, most astrologers I know, cusps aren't real. Like the sun is either in one sign or it's in another. And so for you, I think you might have had like a late 29 degree sun, but the second it shifts 1 degree, it is now 0 degrees Leo. So there are very clear divisions within the zodiac. It's not that ambiguous. So my thing for you, if I would want to look at your whole chart, and usually there's other planets that travel really close with the sun. And so if you are a Cancer, but a lot of people, you come off as very Leo, maybe you have a Venus in Leo, maybe you have Mercury in Leo. So that's why I really emphasize looking at the entire chart. We're so much more than just our sun sign. There's other planets that really influence our expression.
Good to know.
So do you think the sun signs hold weight then? Is that the most
sure.
prominent? Okay.
Absolutely. I think it's like a nice equivalent of the big three, which is your sun sign, your moon sign, which the moon represents who you are on the inside, and who you are behind closed doors, the real you, and how you are, what your instincts are, your subconscious, your emotions. And all of that is formed at a very young age. So children are actually more their moon signs. And then you eventually kind of develop into your sun sign.
Oh, so would you say sun signs are more socialized?
Yeah, definitely. Just to go back, the third one out of the big three, the third placement is your ascendant. And that is a very, very personal part of you as well, because your ascendant is essentially people's first impression of you. number one. It can be described as like your outer mask. But also I like to think of it as like who you're rising into, who you're ascending into, who you're becoming in this lifetime. So that could be diametrically opposed from your sun sign. And that's why people are like, oh, I don't feel like my sun sign. It's like, okay, well, let's bring it into like more of a holistic approach and really consider everything.
So they're the same like signs though, like throughout. They're just, you would have a different one for your moon and your ascendant.
Yes. Yeah. The ascendant is calculated. The ascendant is a point. It's not actually a planet, but this is what I tell people in my readings. Your ascendant sign is, if I was at the hospital, this is why location matters when it comes to your birth chart. If I was at the hospital or the house, the minute you took your first breath and I was facing the eastern horizon, the constellation that was rising on the eastern horizon is considered your rising sign. And so... Yeah, so there's a lot of math involved in astrology. There's like degrees and points, and that sign is constantly moving. It changes every 2.5 hours, whereas the sun takes about 30 days to transit a sign. So that's why I say it's a really personal, important point in your chart that really marks like the beginning of your chart. So that's your ascendant sign is considered your first house. And then the signs following that would be like your second, your third, your fourth, basically like the slices of the pie that make up the entire zodiac. And that's why I say we are all the signs. All of the signs are somehow expressed or reflected through us, just in different areas of our life.
It sounds very much like Enneagram. Obviously, they're different practices, but the whole point of Enneagram is that you are related to the other personalities as well. Julie, do you know your moon sign?
I don't know my moon sign.
How do we find out?
It's so interesting though. Like this is like so not talked about, you know?
Right.
No.
But we hear people all the time kind of judge their potential dates or partners based off their sign.
Stay away.
I remember I had someone like on a dating app a while ago being like, oh, I'm a Leo, you're a Cancer, we're super compatible. And then I was like, wait, I don't think we are actually. And I'm like, should we just end this now? But I guess my question for you is like, what are kind of like the stereotypes maybe with all the signs? Like, can you kind of walk us through like what are like the associations people make?
Or key characteristics.
Key characteristics. Okay. That's better than stereotypes. Less judgy.
We'll start with the first sign, which is Aries. And Aries is ruled by Mars, who's the planet of, it's the god of war. So that's why Aries come off as very combative, aggressive. They're also like go-getters and go after the things that they want, like with the quickness, very impulsive. And so all of the signs get their characteristics from a planet. One of the 7 traditional planets has like a rulership over every sign. So this is where I just want to, for the people that don't know, I'm not just like pulling this out of my bum, you know.
Your moon.
My moon. These are, all of the associations of the signs are from the planets that rule the sign. So like I said, Mars rules Aries. And so to understand how an Aries acts or who they are, you understand the characteristics of Mars.
And remind me again, which months are Aries?
Oh, the beginning of spring. So it's always, Aries starts on the spring equinox. So it's usually like March 20th, March 21st.
Until like mid-April.
Yeah. And then so after Aries is like that first breath of air when you're first born. Aries is like straight out the womb, like let's freaking go. You know, they're like full steam ahead at life. So my favorite thing about the zodiac is how every sign is different. So like we say Aries is like a really fast moving sign, and then the next sign over is Taurus. Taurus are the bulls. They're slow. They take their time, right? They're very like sensual and earthy, and you know, don't rush a Taurus because
it's a commitment too.
It's just not going to happen. Tauruses run on their own time. So, you know, Aries is a very like outward, external kind of energy. And then Taurus is more of like a relaxed internal. So you kind of see these differences.
So are the two compatible or they're opposing?
Well, I guess according to sun sign astrology, they wouldn't be compatible because they're averse to each other. So signs that are next to each other are averse, but two signs that are 2 signs away from each other, compatible.
Oh, interesting.
Signs that are 3 signs away from each other, they have their differences. They might be butting heads. But then if they're like 5 signs, then they're more supportive. So there's just, there's so many like rules, and there's just so many, I guess, things you have to learn when you get into astrology. It's really such a lifelong practice.
So I've dated everyone that's been a Cancer, or my current partner is on, I guess, a Gemini, because he's a Gemini Cancer cusp, but that doesn't exist, that I've learned.
Well, what's his sun sign?
A Gemini.
Gemini.
So
Okay.
saying like everyone I've dated has been like me. Is that like, am I just trying to find myself?
See, this is where I would be like, I would love to know what your Venus sign is, because
Okay.
Venus is a planet in our chart that shows us what we're attracted to, the types of partners that we attract, where we would attract said partners. When we're talking about relationships, Venus is really the planet that you want to look at. You want to make sure that you have compatible Venus signs with the person that you're crushing on.
How do we know what our Venus sign is?
So there's many different ways to look up your chart. You can go to astro.com and they'll just generate a free chart for you. My favorite chart tracking app is called Time Passages. It's a free app, but if you want to get the whole chart for either you or whoever's information that you put in, I think it's like 99 cents. But I literally have like so many of my friends, my old crushes, like random people that I met at the bar. Like, these are like all my friends, charts, family, like.
Wow. Okay, so we left off at Taurus.
Okay, Taurus.
What's after Taurus?
So Taurus is chill. Taurus is, they move slow. That's kind of like the pace. And the next is Gemini. Gemini is a little bit more airy, buzzy, chatty. It's very social. It's very like, because it's ruled by Mercury, and Mercury is like a really fast moving planet. And so this is where you get the characterizations of Gemini, because Mercury is the planet of communication. It's the planet of data, information, travel. There's many different significations of Mercury. And so, that's where like the Gemini stereotypes come from. They're very talkative. Geminis love to chat. So.
I've dated a few Geminis.
Yeah, they're like master like communicators, maybe even like a little bit manipulative, like talking about the shadow sides of.
I'm scared of Geminis, just to put it out there.
They could just talk their way in and out of every situation, and they really like lead with their charm, and they're very curious people, and so they'll like manage to get whatever they want just by like, I don't know, chatting you up, charming you up.
That is very true of all the Geminis I know.
Yeah. Me
and the
too.
next sign.
The next sign is Cancer. So Cancer is a little bit more of like a internal, kind of slower moving sign. I guess I'm kind of trying to explain how the zodiac is this really beautiful pattern or cycle of like external energy and then internal.
And the internal.
And internal, right? It's like
that's how it balances itself, right?
Exactly. So Cancer is a little bit more like they'd rather be at home. They're big focus around the home, big focus around the family, big focus around feeling things. Are very like extra highly sensitive. Cancer is ruled by the moon. And so again, all of the significations of Cancer we get from the moon. The moon represents the mother in the chart. So Cancers can be very mothering, very caretaking, loves to nourish and be nourished, like nourishing the people around you. Let me cook you some food. Let me like, make sure you're comfortable. That's really the energy of Cancer, and also like highly intuitive, highly attuned to the subtle energies that aren't so like external. They're not so, out there.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty intuitive. I always like say that. Like I always have like a sixth sense something is coming like before it comes.
Yeah, spidey senses on Cancers are like just mind-blowing to me. My best friend is a Cancer, and the times when I'm like feeling down, I'll get this random text for her. She'll be like, my spidey senses told me that like, we should chat or something like that. I'm like, how did did you know?
How did you know?
Like, babe, I'm a Cancer. I'm psychic. Like,
It's interesting that Cancer is right next to Gemini.
Mhm.
So how can the two work together? One's more external, one's more internal. Asking for a friend, Julie.
I guess we can learn a lot from every sign. I feel like one thing that Gemini can learn from Cancer is Geminis are very of the surface. Like they just kind of skim the top a little bit, so it can be a little bit superficial. Whereas Cancers really crave and appreciate depth and want, substance. And so Geminis can learn how to be a little bit more thoughtful, a little bit more intentional, a little bit more explorative of what's down beneath and below the surface. So like they can learn from each other for sure. That's just their natural way of being is definitely very different.
Interesting. Let's hold that thought for a few announcements.
Have you ever thought about how much better dating would be if you had a whole army of people supporting you along the way? We know that dating can be frustrating and lonely, but it can also feel fulfilling and fun. Have you recently decided you want to make some changes to your love life? Maybe you've recently re-entered the dating scene. Maybe you've gone on one too many dates that went nowhere. Or maybe you're just ready to take your current relationship to the next level. That is exactly why we created the Sounding Board, a true extension of our podcast that delivers a personalized experience, which includes monthly office hours where you can drop in and chat with us about anything, weekly sound-offs with guided discussions, and regular virtual happy hours. Allow Julie and I to become your dating Sherpas to provide real-time guidance and wisdom in a more intimate way so we can all navigate dating and relationships together. Join the Sounding Board today by going to dateablepodcast.com/sounding board. Again, that's dateablepodcast.com/sounding board.
Okay, so after Cancer, what is
Leo.
next? Okay.
Leo is ruled by the sun, and the sun being the center of our solar system.
Yep.
You can
Attention!
So Leos, and I'm a Leo too. And I was like a theater major. So I loved attention. Like I loved having all eyes on me. But the way that I heard it described once was like, you can't help but notice the sun. And that's kind of how it is with Leos. Like the sun is literally right there. Our entire day revolves around the sun. And the sun brings us warmth. The sun brings life and happiness and joy. What happens when there's no sun? Think about like winter months.
Yeah.
Seasonal
Darkness,
depression.
sadness.
Yeah. Like it's not as like fun with the sun. So, that's where Leos get the signification of loving to be center of attention. And not all Leos like love it. It's like sometimes they just can't help it, or like they just can't. It's just there's something about their spirit. There's something about their energy that is just so commanding.
I would love to see the percentage of TikTokers who are
Leos. Oh my God. I feel like it's so
95%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Leos are also the entertainers of the zodiac. They're very entertaining, funny, extremely loyal, very dramatic, but can be very prideful, maybe a little bit self-centered, a little egoic. I feel like maybe I'm just speaking from personal experience, but a lot of the Leos I talk to, and just kind of like my little observations is like, Leos have such a huge heart. And if they're not really able to share and express that, it's like you can't breathe, it's like you're getting a lack of oxygen. So it's that sharing of love and that receiving of love, that reciprocal, like, back and forth is super important. That's like oxygen to Leo. So yeah.
Okay. Cool. What's next on the chart?
Next would be Virgo. So where Leo has like this really outward, bombastic, like dramatic expression, Virgos are a little bit more pared down. Virgos are like, I only need what's necessary. They're very, I guess, the stereotype of Virgo is that they're perfectionist, but really it is this search for what's pure. It's like getting down to like the purest essence of something. And so my boyfriend's actually a Virgo, and just like his attention to detail and like just the way that he, through his art and through his like personal expression, the way that he like really can look at the details in ways that like not a lot of people that I know can, is truly extraordinary. It's like, think of it as like their superpowers. Every sign has their superpowers. So
that's fascinating that you and your boyfriend are also neighboring signs.
We are, yeah. So we actually don't have technically compatible sun signs. However, his Venus sign and Mars sign, which are two planets that have a lot to do with relationship compatibility. Like I said, Venus is who you attract, what you're attracted to. Mars is like our sexuality, like our drive, what like really turns us on. It's more of like the lusty kind of sexual side, sexual nature. Both of those planets for him are in Leo, and they're sitting really close to my sun. And so that is an example of how we are super compatible, whereas like our sun signs may not be traditionally compatible. So there's other aspects in our charts that line up very beautifully. And also just to note, like, you don't have to be fully 100% compatible with your partner. Like, there's no charts that are going to be like perfectly
right.
You're going to have incompatibilities. You're going to have, you're going to be hopefully you're different than the person that you're with, because then you can learn things from them. And
yes, I definitely want to address that once we get through all the signs, because
Yeah.
that will be a major question.
Okay. Okay. So after Virgo's ruled by Mercury.
So what dates are Virgo? Like, where are we in the
that
calendar?
Would be end of August to end of September. I think it changes every year too, the exact dates, because our Gregorian calendar isn't exactly in line with the zodiac. So what's next after Virgo is Libra.
Okay.
Currently, we're in Libra season. The sun is currently in Libra at the time of this filming, but Libras stereotypically, I guess, they're ruled by Venus. So they're all about connection. They're all about kind of like the same as Gemini, being very social. I guess the main thing about Libras is that they want to connect. Their main focus is really like the other person, like what they're thinking. And, is it like harmonious? So the sign or the symbol of Libra is the scale. So for Libra's main motivation is keeping things harmonious, being in balance, making sure that everything is like in equilibrium. They're like the most relationship oriented sign.
Yeah, I was going to say they are probably all in relationships or searching for relationships.
Yeah. I mean, my moon is in Libra, so this would be kind of expressed as this like really deep, subconscious, instinctual desire to connect with other people in any way. Libras can be like very flirty, very charming, because they're always just trying to like, connect with other people, whether it's friendly, whether it's romantic, or, however.
Yes, the Libras I've dated have been major networkers. Yes. They love networking. They love going to social events. They love connecting people. They're very good at that.
Yeah, Libras love of all kinds. That's like the MO. Without love, it's like they die. Okay, so after that is Scorpio. Scorpio is ruled by Mars. Scorpio is, again, where Libra is more about like the superficial kind of surfacey, like networking, aspect of relationships. Scorpios are like the intense, all-encompassing, passionate, that like I want to devour your soul type of, relationship. That would be more in line with Scorpio way of thinking. Their main concern is depth. It's like, I don't want the surface level. I want, I want to know what really drives you, like what is below the surface, because it's the symbol for Scorpio is the scorpion, and like they'll like get to the bottom of like the muddy bottom, like they'll like feed off of what's down in the deep dark caves. Like they're just like, I don't want surface level.
Mm.
I feel like networking events would be like such a nightmare for Scorpios because they're just like, I literally don't care.
Yeah. I just
Bear
want to be
me
in my
your
cave.
soul. Yeah, exactly. Bear me your soul, or I don't want it.
So I thought Aries was ruled by Mars. Can two signs be ruled by the same planet?
Yes. So
Oh,
Aries and Scorpio are ruled by Mars. Let's see. Pisces and Sagittarius are both ruled by Jupiter. Taurus and Libra are both ruled by Venus. But there's like different expressions.
got it.
Okay, so who's next? For Scorpio is Sagittarius.
I know too many Sagittarians.
Sagittarians' main concern in life, I would say, is truth and freedom. Like, do not ever attempt to possess or, hold down a Sagittarius. Because Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. Their main motivation is to expand, to learn, to travel. Jupiter is a planet of like higher learning and travel. Jupiter is like the sage, the wise guru of the zodiac. So Sagittarians are maybe a little bit more harder to pin down.
Yes.
Especially in relationship. Not all. We're just
totally
talking about stereotypes and generalizations, but just don't want people to be like, I'm a Sagittarius. I've been in a relationship for 10 years.
Right.
I'm like,
Of course.
It can happen
possible.
still. It
Like,
can
I
happen
believe
still.
you.
Yeah.
It's complicated, but I agree on the surface level. I do have a few Sagittarian friends who are in relationships but don't want to get married.
Yeah.
Don't put that ring on me. I don't want it. Don't pin me down.
They're not trying to be contained. They're trying to expand. Like Jupiter is the biggest, most expansive planet in our solar system, and so that's kind of like what Sagittarians are like emulating. Okay, so who's after? Oh, Capricorn is after Sagittarius.
So complicated.
I'm a Capricorn rising, so I can speak into this a little bit, but let's just go backwards to Sagittarius. Expansive, out there, concerned with freedom. Then the next sign over is Capricorn, is a little bit more demure, a little bit more austere. I don't know, like serious. Serious is really the best way to describe Capricorn, because they are ruled by Saturn. And Saturn is the planet of limits, boundaries, sacrifices. It's like Saturn takes time. And so Capricorns they're like the hard workers. They will spend their entire lives trying to achieve and succeed and build their empire. And they're a little bit more traditional too. It's not, like, whereas Sagittarius is like, they'll go on like a 20-hour party binge, in like Ibiza, like that would be their ideal day. Capricorns, it's more like, I just want to work a passion project and build my company or my empire, or they're more concerned with security.
And how do they show up in relationships?
They'll commit like for life. And so Capricorns are like, once I commit to you, it's
one and done.
I'm committed. Yeah. And once they decide they're uncommitted, it's like,
it's over.
You'll never see them
No
again.
coming back.
Like they'll literally never text you again.
So you said that you're Capricorn rising. Like, what does that mean? I feel like there's just so many angles of this it gets very confusing sometimes.
So the rising sign is determined from literally the minute you were born. So that's why knowing your exact birth time and location is super important, because like I said, if somebody was at the hospital the minute I took my first breath, then the sign that is rising on the eastern horizon is Capricorn. Like I said before too, it's kind of like the stamp or the mask, like the wrapping paper that you come with, right? It's what people immediately see. And it's also like who you're rising into in this lifetime, who you're turning into, what you're becoming over time.
Got it. Okay, so Capricorn, that's the last one that we're at. How many more do we have?
Just a couple more. There's after Capricorn is Aquarius.
That's you, Ace.
Yeah.
So Aquarius is also ruled by Saturn, but whereas Capricorn is more like the traditional side of Saturn, Capricorn is the old guard, Aquarius is the new guard. So that's like the best way that I know how to describe Aquarius. They are like the humanitarians. They're more concerned with the collective, very inventive, very original, very contrarian. They just march by the beat of their own drum. They're very authentic to themselves. And in fact, like, inauthenticity is like repulsive to Aquarians. It's like when you see like people following trends or something like that. Like when Aquarians see people following trends, they're just like, ugh, I'm going to go this way. I'm going to do my own thing.
This is why I'm so attracted to men who don't have IG or even Facebook.
Yeah, it's like there's something refreshing to Aquarians when people do something different or something that people aren't doing. So that's Aquarius.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last sign is Pisces. Pisces is ruled by Jupiter. And Pisces is the more like spiritual, mystical, kind of intangible, ethereal sign. They're very like in their own world, tend to like kind of go off into their dreams or the astrals for a little while and not really be like they're not like the most embodied like here on Earth.
Oh.
But they're the dreamers. They're the ones that are like visualizing a whole new reality for humanity, one that is rooted in compassion and love and, you know, connected to the divine in some way. So that is Pisces. Yeah.
That's my boyfriend. So we also have neighboring signs. All three of us are dating neighboring signs.
So, because we obviously want to tie this to dating too. Like,
of course.
It kind of reminds me of, we had a guest that was an expert on Myers-Briggs. We're like, should we put your like Myers-Briggs in your profile? And he's like, absolutely not.
No.
Because people are going to make snap judgments off of you. Like, how do we use this information though with the people we're dating?
Sure. I think it's a really good way to understand the other person on a much, much deeper level beyond who they present, you know, on the first date. Some astrologers will say, absolutely do not look at another person's chart until you're well into the relationship because of that, like those biases that you tend to have. But I read my boyfriend's chart on our first date, and I was just like, I gotta know what's up over here, because you know, you might be a Virgo, but you have so many Leo tendencies and qualities. And of course, I was right. He had 2 planets in Leo, and I'm like, okay. Whereas before, I might have been like, oh, he's a Virgo, we're not the most compatible. I see that, and I'm like, oh, now it's a game. Now we're talking, you know.
Okay, so it's not give up. It's just like, what are the other
just
pieces?
Understand. Yeah, it's our chart can really tell so much about a person, and you can really just get to know parts of themselves that they wouldn't necessarily like put out there. From your chart, you can tell like what kind of mother you had, what kind of upbringing you had, what kind of father you had, the difficult experiences you might be facing. And so people feel really seen when you can like penetrate beyond the surface of like what they're presenting. And so I just use astrology and chart compatibility and synastry as like just a way to kind of like take off the mask and the barrier and just be like, you know, love them for who they are, all of the different aspects and dimensions of their personality and their experiences. Yeah, I feel like astrology is a way to like really see and be seen.
How much should we put weight on the compatibility of signs? I can see some people saying that's the first thing I look at.
Yeah.
If we're not compatible, then it's over. Or should I ignore these signs and, you know, get to know the person?
I wouldn't ever say like, you shouldn't like date someone because you see something in their chart that might be like,
right.
you know, different than you. Like that's just, it's a little judgmental, right? It's not, I wouldn't want somebody to be like, oh, she's a Leo. I would never date a Leo.
Right.
I'd be like you don't know me, you know? But also, like, I can read someone's chart and only really get a sliver of an understanding. Maybe it's a deeper understanding than usual, but our charts are, at least for me, my chart is constantly giving me more and newer information about myself. I've been studying my chart since 2014, and I still learn new things about my chart all the time. So we're constantly evolving. We're constantly unfolding. And like different aspects of our chart too are activated by the transits. So like maybe like a certain part of our chart would be a little bit more emphasized during, Libra season or Cancer season. And so, yeah, there's just so much that goes into it. I think it's like a good snapshot. It's like a good way to kind of gauge and just be like, okay, like I see here that like this part of us is compatible, but maybe like our communication styles are a little bit different. And so instead of being like, oh, we shouldn't date, like strive to understand their communication style. It's it could be like a cheat code almost to like really developing much deeper intimacy with your partner. Instead of just judging off the bat, like that's rude. Like nobody should do that.
I definitely like am a sucker for articles when I see them because I do believe in astrology and like I feel like a lot of Cancer characteristics I do feel like resonate. So I saw an article, I think it was over the weekend, and it said like these 3 signs are going to end their relationships by October 15th. And first of all, it was October 18th.
Okay.
But I was like, what's the line of like how much we should be like looking into this? Because it felt very drastic to me seeing something like that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, the main job of an article is for you to click on it. Like,
it's total clickbait.
It's clickbait.
Total clickbait.
So of course they're going to like sensationalize, but I think what they mean is that Mercury was just stationed retrograde in Libra, the sign of relationships. And so if your relationship is already on shaky ground, probably, not gonna, this would be a huge hurdle to jump over. Okay. If I was going to rewrite this article, I would be like, instead of saying like these signs are going to break up, which instills fear in the reader. And it's like you're eliciting these like strong emotions from the reader, which is like a little bit misleading. I think if I was in a consultation with someone and I saw a really challenging transit come up, I would be like, okay, if your relationship can withstand this period of time, which there's going to be challenges, there's going to be a lot of tests, there's going to be a lot of setbacks. If it doesn't make your relationship stronger, then it's probably, on its way out or something like that. But I wouldn't be like, you're going to break up with your partner in the next 3 weeks. Like
whatever, Kristina, you wrote this article. I know it.
But I was also like, it's October 18th. So.
That's when Mercury stations direct.
Interesting.
Oh, I see. So it was related to Mercury retrograde.
Correct. Yeah. Because when a planet turns retrograde, it appears as if it's going backwards in the sky. It's not really, but just based on our position on Earth, it looks like the planets are going backwards. But what we can reframe those retrograde periods as is a time for reflection. So when planets are retrograde, it's really a time to go inward to like, instead of going forward and looking forward all the time, which is something that like our culture really values. It's just like, go, 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 never look back, just like continue pushing forward, turning inwards and reflecting and like reviewing the last 3 months, 4 months or so is really valuable. And it's like, is this path that I'm on right for me? Is this relationship right for me? And so that's why, there could be like the threat of a breakup, because this retrograde period is just really asking you to do a little bit of internal work and to really contemplate and reevaluate what is right for you.
And on a similar topic, how do you feel about horoscopes and how much weight should we give to horoscopes?
So I used to write horoscopes for Astrology.com, and it's tough. It's really tough to write for a giant population, like huge groups of people. So horoscopes are really just ways to deliver information to like big groups of people. And so that's why they are a little bit more generalized. I didn't really like writing horoscopes, to be honest. I really prefer going one-on-one with a client, looking at your specific chart and being really, really specific to you. I guess horoscopes are like a good, read it like you would like an inspirational quote, like I wouldn't put like so much weight into it, because it's not really tailored to you. Like,
right.
what
Right.
might be like a huge monumental shift for one person, for you, it's like a little bloop.
Right.
It doesn't even register. But to some person, to another person, like they're one of the planets in their charts might be getting like fully activated by this like upcoming full moon or something. But to you, it's not really activating any personal planets in your chart. So you're not going to feel it as much as this other person. So another thing that I want to say about horoscopes is we tend to read them for sun signs, but a lot of astrologers I know, including me, when I was writing horoscopes, I wrote them for your rising signs. So
So you might even be looking at the wrong one.
you might be looking at that. That's why some people are like, this is bullshit. Like, you know, like this doesn't mean anything.
What I'm gathering from a lot of this is that it's a really good jumping off point to have like more conversations. Yeah. How do you think we can use astrology to strengthen relationships?
Just asking questions and just kind of like seeing people for who they are, not who you want them to be or who you think that they should be. I think it's a really good way to understand yourself, and like the deeper you understand yourself and all of your multidimensionality, the more you'll be able to accept it in other people. You know, I talk about astrology all the time with my partner, like, because we have the same rising sign. So whatever transits are happening, they affect the same parts of our lives. So I'm like, babe, like, there's about to be a Mercury retrograde in our 10th house of career. I know. This is a really good time to kind of reevaluate how we're going to move forward in Q4 and 2022, and like what we want to do and what kind of legacy we want to leave.
Wow.
That's a good way to kind of like strengthen our relationship and just understand where we fit in like the larger scheme of things and like the larger cycles at play. So I think it's a really great bonding tool as long as it's used intentionally and just to understand the other person and less to judge them, because again, no one wants to be judged or stereotyped in any way.
No.
So
what's your personal opinion on putting your sign in your dating profile? Yes or no?
Yeah, I mean,
do it.
Yeah, why not? I would say put your sun, moon, rising. That's even better.
Okay.
Love it.
What's your?
I'm like, I have no
what's
idea
your
what that
ASL?
is.
Do you remember? Like
I've seen people put that, and I never knew what it meant. So
this is the new ASL. What's your sun, moon, rising? That'll give me a little bit deeper of an idea of who you are, rather than just being like, I'm an Aries. Okay, you're Aries, maybe with a Pisces moon. That's like a very different Aries than like an Aries with a Scorpio moon.
Right. Like, I mean, that's a good transition to takeaways, because I think that's something I'm gathering is we're just like scratching the surface with astrology on the internet and maybe making rash decisions that shouldn't be made. Like, I'm not compatible with you because I read some article that says that our sun signs aren't compatible.
Yeah.
And from what I'm gathering from you is it's an insight into you, who you are, but there's many different dynamics at play, and it's really looking at it. And I think this word jumping off point keeps standing out to me because I really view it as a way to get to know yourself better, get to know your partner better, to ask deeper questions, to question things. Like, I love when you said, you know, maybe there's an area that you don't identify. Maybe it is digging a little deeper of why you don't feel that you identify with it. Is there something under the surface there? So I think it's just, again, like, knowledge is power, and take what works for you, leave what doesn't. Don't like, you know, let your life necessarily be ruled by it, but use it as a way that can like help you. Exactly.
It's a tool.
Yes.
Like that's all it is. And it's a tool that takes many, many years. Some would say lifetimes to truly embody and master. Like, the longer I study astrology, the more I'm like, you know, like, that's true. The people who are like, you know, I know everything about astrology. It's like, no, you don't. It's such a deeply complex system. It's ancient. Like, it goes way back, and there's so many, you know, rules and, you know, math, and there's just so much to it. And so to like derive it down, or just to like boil it down to like a sun sign, is just kind of like disrespectful to the whole medium, like, in general, I think.
Right. Yeah. My biggest takeaway is I've been using astrology totally wrong all these years. I've been using it to help me make decisions. or to look for it to validate my decisions when it really should be used as a tool for deeper understanding. Back in the day, if things weren't going well for me in dating, I would look up his sign and the horoscope would tell me that he's busy. And I'd be like, oh, it's because he's busy. Like, that has nothing to do with
excuses
anything.
for them. Never. Astrology should never be to like justify being treated like badly.
Poorly. Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
Yeah, it's just a tool for understanding, acceptance, like radical self-love. And again, like the deeper you love and know yourself, the more likely it is that you can like deeply and become intimate with another person.
That's a great takeaway.
And the other takeaway that may be controversial for some is that I think there is something to be said about leaving things to the planets. And sometimes we try so hard to explain why we're feeling a certain way or why our relationship's going a certain way or why dating is going a certain way for us. What if we just said, well, the planets are changing and that is what's causing this cosmic shift in how I'm feeling. And that is very liberating to know that, but it also gives multi-dimensions to what we're going through. Even looking at your birth chart, you're multi-dimensional, and then just re-listening to this episode will show that the stars are also multi-dimensional, the signs are multi-dimensional, and just know that there's no easy answer. And sometimes you just got to leave it up to the universe and the planets.
Leave it up to the universe, the planets. The planets are, I like to think of them, if we're going to go like real kind of out there, and this is like the more spiritualized aspect of my astrology practice. Planets to me are like my biggest teachers. They're like the ascended masters to me. And so I wouldn't necessarily say that the planets are causing. I would say it's more we're acting in symbiosis with each other, because
I see.
There's this like ancient saying, there's this ancient hermetic proverb, and it's as above, so below. So it's like what happens on the macro is also happening on the micro.
We're mirroring.
That's exactly, we're mirroring each other. So yeah, it's not like, damn you, Saturn, like you're fucking up my life. It's like, no, you're fucking up your life. Like Saturn is just exposing it for you.
Can't blame Saturn.
I can't blame the planets. They're here to teach us. Like we're here, having this human experience. We're here to learn. We're here to grow, evolve, expand. And I feel like the more I really understand how the planets interact and relate with one another and how it like shows up in my life, it's just expands my awareness of the universe. And, like I think that to me is like my main driving force is just pure awareness.
Yeah, I like this, like using it as a guide. I think like what you talked about of, there's different seasons. Maybe it's paying more attention to your career or, maybe my takeaway is don't break up with someone just because you see a article that says that you're going to break up because of that, but use that as an opportunity to maybe like reflect on the relationship and see if you can get through the difficult times. Like I think using it more as a guide of what's happening opposed to rash decisions, because like you said with the horoscopes, there's no way an article can generalize for every single person out there. There's no way.
There's no way. The best thing to do, if you really want personal advice, like just go have a consultation with a professional astrologer, and they'll pinpoint and be very, very specific about how it shows up for you. And so I actually don't even read horoscopes.
Well, that's good.
Yeah,
I hope you don't, because you used to write them. So why would you read them?
I did, and then I was just like, it's not deep enough for me. It's not specific enough, and I didn't like,
you pick and choose too.
Yeah, exactly. Whose horoscopes I do love? Actually, I got to take this back because I've been reading Chani Nicholas's horoscopes for years, since like 2014, and she has an app. It's called Chani. Chani. The way that she writes about the transits are so, I don't know, just it resonates in ways I've never seen horoscopes resonate before. Like it's very poetic, it's very beautiful, it's very affirmative, very focused on growth and in alignment. It's not like you're going to break up with your boyfriend this week. Like,
It's not Cosmo. We'll just put it that way.
It's exactly.
That's good, because we were going to ask you too if there's any resources you would leave.
Sure.
I know you've dropped a few, but are there any ones? And then also at the end, how do people get in touch with you?
Yeah, because you also do one-on-one consultations, right, Kristina?
Yeah.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So to answer your first question, resources, Chani Nicholas to me is like, she's like my astrology queen, because she was like the first astrologer that really made me kind of like listen and pay attention, just because of the way that she wrote about it. And I actually have her book right next to me here. It's called You Were Born for This.
Oh.
It's Astrology for Radical Self-Acceptance. And you can see there's like lots of notations. So that's one of my favorite books to recommend for newbies, people who really want to understand their entire birth chart. It's like a step-by-step guide, how to understand your moon sign, how to understand your ascendant, rising sign. Like, what does your Venus sign mean? So very informative. Love that book. In terms of apps, I love her app as well, the Chani app, and Time Passage.
Time Passage.
Yeah, that's the app that I use to track my own transits, to like where I have my chart, where I have my friends' charts.
Transits. Julie, do you just love this word?
I
That's
love it.
life.
I love
We're
it.
always transitioning into something. So transits.
There's
Love it.
Exactly. There's always some kind of planetary transit happening. We're like in the midst of like just all these transits all happening on top of each other. One's beginning, one's ending. We're in the middle of another one. Like it's just so complex and so beautiful. And I just
so much going on. And then how do people get in touch with you?
Sure. So you can find me on Instagram at Kristina Bakrevski. You can visit my website, KristinaBakrevski.com. And I do one-on-one sessions, although I've been skewing a little bit more towards astrology for business and working with female entrepreneurs, creatives, really heart and soul based entrepreneurs on their business in diving into their birth chart. So if you are like a business owner and you want to like know when to launch something or know when to rest or like when's a good time for this or that, like I love working with.
Awesome. Do you do love related stuff, or would you recommend like one of the other resources?
I don't. That's not really. I began as like a natal chart astrologer, so just kind of like looking at your birth chart, and I did a bunch of those, and I just like found them to be. An hour is not enough time to like really go deep. When it comes to compatibility and synastry, like I'll do it for my friends, like just if they ask, but not in like a professional setting.
Got it.
Hey, Kristina, will you do my love chart?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like as a friend, like I would be happy to like just my quick observations.
All good. You left everyone with plenty of resources that they can dive into.
I think there's a couple books though, specifically astrology for relationships really quickly. Jessica Lanyadoo has a really amazing book when it comes to compatibility, and so does Annabelle Gatt. Those are two astrologers who specifically write about compatibility. And I like
awesome.
I like how they write and speak. So
awesome. Thank you so much for all these resources. I mean, I feel like I just need to like download that app today and go deeper. I need to go deeper. That's what I took away from this.
Well, that is so Cancer of you.
So Cancer.
Yeah,
so Cancer.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe you'll be like nourished and fulfilled from it.
Oh, totally. Totally.
Thank you, Kristina. And for all of our listeners, we do have a horoscope for all of your signs today, which is you're going to write a review in Apple Podcasts about us and give us 5-star rating.
Only you can make it come true.
It's in the stars. It's crazy. Everybody has the same horoscope today. It really helps us to get awesome guests like Kristina who can divulge so much of her knowledge to us and have this just fantastic conversation so we can keep giving you great content. So whenever you get a chance, Apple Podcasts, 5-star rating, and like a little blurb about why you love us and Kristina at the same time. And we're going to wrap this up. Stay dateable. The Dateable Podcast is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. Find more podcasts you'll love at frolic.media/podcasts. Want to continue the conversation? First, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter with the handle @DateablePodcast. Tag us in any post with the hashtag StayDateable, and trust us, we look at all of those posts. Then head over to our website, dateablepodcast.com. There you'll find all the episodes as well as articles, videos, and our coaching service with vetted industry experts. You can also find our premium Why series, where we dissect, analyze, and offer solutions to some of the most common dating conundrums. We're also downloadable for free on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Overcast, Stitcher Radio, and other podcast platforms. Your feedback is valuable to us, so don't forget to leave us a review. And most importantly, remember to stay dateable.